everyone. It is the last day of Tom's of Maine's Wellness Week, and I'm Phoebe Lapine. I'm here to show you on Facebook Live some really easy, healthy tips from my daily morning routine, which is how I like to nature up. First thing, I wake up, I rise and shine, wipe my eyes, and I meditate. Now, this is so important for me because usually if I start my day with devices, it means I'm starting the day with other people's demands. It's not a very calming, centered way to, launch into the day or set any sort of intention. So instead, I get up, I brush my teeth, and then I go back to my pillow and I sit for 20 minutes. Sometimes it's a little bit less, but even if I have kind of a subpar meditation, I try and at least take those minutes to just recenter and breathe and not be, worrying about my emails, although sometimes that creeps in too. So it doesn't have to be 20 minutes for you, but even just starting with a simple 2-minute breathing exercise is a really cool thing to experiment with for your morning routine, and it's also free. So after that, I naturally move to the kitchen. I'm a gluten-free chef and food writer, and so this is obviously one of my favorite ways to nature up is to make a homemade, quick and easy breakfast. Even though I am a chef, I don't really like to dirty cutting boards or anything at 8 a.m., so it's important to me that whatever it is I'm gonna eat is quick, and it's also important to me that whatever it is gonna be low sugar, because that's really how I get my fuel for the day and set those intentions. I find that when I eat too much sugar in the morning, even in the form of a lot of fresh fruit, high glycemic fresh fruit, it just means that my sugar cravings are gonna escalate throughout the day. So the smoothie that I'm gonna show you today is really full of fiber. We'll go through all the individual ingredients, and it has a really great ratio, I think, of greens to low glycemic fruits. So today we're gonna use a mix of berries, blueberries, raspberries, and strawberries. And I'm a huge fan of cooking seasonally, but sometimes, especially when it comes to fresh fruit in the winter time, that's not always possible. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with using frozen fruit. It means that whatever it is was frozen at the peak of its season. It actually does retain a lot of its nutrients that way. And it's also just plain convenient. And the most important thing about cooking for yourself is making sure that you're able to actually do it on a regular basis. So one thing that I do, even when I'm using fresh fruit, is I'll freeze it myself put it away in glass containers, and then I always have it on hand, and I try to do so in individual servings or to make the entire smoothie from scratch and put it in these little silly squares, and then all I have to do is blend it up each morning with a little bit of almond milk, and then I'm kind of reducing my morning routine in length even more and still getting my great fiber-rich breakfast. So let's start. We're gonna use a little bit of blueberries, some raspberries and strawberries, and then really important, spinach. We gotta have those greens in there. I love getting at least one serving of vegetables in the morning. And I think spinach is a really good gateway green for a smoothie. It's pretty mild. Not that you really sense any sort of texture in the smoothie itself once it's done and pureed, but some of the bitter greens, you can tell it a little bit more, and if you're a little bit more shy with your greens and putting them in technically sweet dishes, which this smoothie is still, then I think maybe start with spinach. Next, we're gonna do some almond butter. And I always look at my labels when I'm shopping for myself and make sure that there's no added sugar. Next, this is maybe a surprise ingredient for some of you, Brazil nuts. It's not something you see that much, but they are one of the things that I really like to do to support my thyroid health because they're high in selenium. Another, thyroid hero ingredient in my life is Maca Powder, so just a little bit of that. Oops, and a little bit on me too. And then for even more fiber, some chia seeds and hemp seeds. You can use one or the other or both like I'm doing here today, or you can leave them out entirely. And then you'll notice I'm not adding any honey, any agave. I'm not adding any protein powders. You know, we're kind of keeping it as fresh and natural as possible. And then I just have some unsweetened almond milk. You can use unsweetened vanilla flavor if that's what you like. And that's just going to make sure that we get everything pureed and smooth. So, top securely on. Never want to make that mistake. And then we're gonna blend. All right, that is looking good to me. We've got kind of a dark purple palette because of the greens and the blueberries, but I promise you it is totally delicious. So, let's see, myself a jar. And that's it. As you can see, it just takes a few minutes to whip together, and it allows me to really start my day eating exactly how I want to eat, which I think is the right way for my body. And then I usually go to work. But there are many other ways that I get my nature in throughout the day, but this is my favorite, of course, is in the kitchen. Does anyone have any questions on what we've done today? I'm going to take a sip while those come in.
What's your favorite seasonal fruit?
My favorite seasonal fruit. I mean, there is nothing better than berries in the summertime. I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, I'd say that's my favorite. I do love peaches too. Peaches are delicious. It depends on kind of what I'm using them for. I love berries just fresh off the vine if possible from the farmer's market. But there are definitely other things that I love for flavoring dishes, for baking. Peaches are amazing for baking, especially healthy baking, because they do have so much beautiful natural sugars that they impart on each dish, and you can add a healthy gluten-free crumble on top.
Do you ever add juices to your smoothies, such as pineapple juice?
I don't. You know, juices are great, especially if you are, you know, adding in some other fiber, but in trying to keep my smoothies as low sugar as possible, I stick to the whole fruit, which has all of its fiber. Adding juice, which doesn't have any, and contains a lot of sugar, but pineapple juice is delicious, and when I'm not starting the day the right way, or I'm down south, I enjoy it in iced tea.
And one more question. Do you have recommendations for freezable recipes that you can make ahead?
Yeah, so anything. So this smoothie, we can even show you, I don't have that much left, but you can just pour it right in these silly pats. For breakfasts that are freezable, gosh, that's actually a really hard one. I think breakfast is a really good meal to do make-ahead things like chia pudding, overnight oats, and even if you're not eating completely plant-based and like to do eggs, these little, you can use, not these, but muffin tins for frittata bites, and those reheat really easily. I'm not sure how any of those things freeze. It's interesting. I actually use my freezer more for weeknight meals, since that's where, you know, I usually make some extra servings and keep them on hand. And generally for that, I mean, soups freeze really well, stews freeze really well, curries, anything that has a lot of broth and cooked vegetables. Raw things, not quite as much, although the exception being pesto freezes really well. And that's a good way to make sure that all of your fresh herbs last. And, you know, you can even, you know, towards the very end of summer, bring some more green life into your kitchen that way by making some pesto fresh herbs and freezing it. Okay, our time is up. I'm gonna go finish drinking this smoothie. I hope you all have an excellent weekend and continue naturing up throughout this week and beyond.